First, you want to create a document and name it. We are going to be making a single sprocket shaft assembly. Next, you also want to name the assembly. You can just use the same name that you used for the document. Next, you're going to want to insert from the public libraries, and what you want to search in the public libraries is Rev Shaft Stuff Library. After selecting it, we are going to be inserting a 15mm spacer, two 3mm spacers, two through bore bearings, a shaft collar, and a 5mm by 90mm hex shaft. You want to drag away all of the other pieces away from the origin, but whenever you select the 5mm by 90mm hex shaft, you want to keep it on the origin so you have a fixed point to work around. After inserting all of those, you want to right-click on the hex shaft and fix it in place on the origin. Next, we're going to insert again from the public libraries, and this time we are going to search Rev Gear Sprocket Library. From here, we're just going to select the 10-tooth number 25 sprocket. You also want to move this away from the origin. After inserting that, we're only going to be using one tool in this single sprocket shaft assembly, which is the fastened mate. We're going to fasten all of the parts to the hex shaft. You're going to begin by fastening the shaft collar to the hex shaft. You want to wait until the little circle in the center appears because that shows that you have selected the center of that piece. After selecting the faces of the hex shaft and the shaft collar, you want to rotate the shaft collar so that the set screw is in an accessible place. After finishing this mate, you want to select the check mark on the lower box to end this mate and start a new mate. You're next going to fasten the through bore bearing and the shaft collar. You want to select the smaller side of the through bore bearing and make sure that you select the middle of the through bore bearing. After selecting the face of the through bore bearing, you're going to want to also select the face of the shaft collar. Ensure that the sides of the collar and the through bore bearing are aligned, and flip the primary axis so the through bore bearing is facing the right way. Select the 3mm spacer and the through bore bearing and do the same as before, ensuring that the sides of the spacer and the through bore bearing are aligned and that the spacer is facing the right way. Select the sprocket and mate it to the spacer. Make sure that the edge of the sprocket is properly aligned with the edge of the spacer and that they don't overlap. Select the 15mm spacer and mate it with the sprocket. Select the 3mm spacer and mate it with the 15mm spacer. Again, make sure that the two edges of the spacers don't overlap. Finally, select the larger side of the through bore bearing and mate it to the 3mm spacer.